Welcome to Leicester City Down Under. Neil, how are you, mate? All right?
I'm all good, mate. Yeah, good to be on your show again. Looking forward to it. But we'll have to see how. Yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. But yeah, looking forward to it. Sorry, I just had the video playing in the background. But yeah, all good. Even though we lost, I think there's definitely positive to take.
Yeah, we've all been feeling kind of that way. Like we don't feel hard done by, but we still think that there's room, not as dire as we expected with the preseason and how that kind of went about. Um, Mate, what I wanted to talk to you about today, just talk quickly off air before, but what I'm really curious, and I think that we've had what now 3 matches, but it still kind of feels a little bit like of a preseason because of the late people that we've signed. Some still haven't even featured. What I want to talk about is starters and finishers and positions that we're seeing most likely to see players substituted out in and out. Seeing a little bit of rotation. Um, just wanted to talk to you who you would like to see in certain positions and who you'd like to see finish if they were to be substituted. Uh,
So yeah, go for it. Go for it. I thought you could.
no,
Yeah.
no, no, you go.
No, for me, it's really important. It's depending on the opponent you're playing. At the end of the day, when you're playing against a Man City, you're going to set up very differently if we're setting up against Southampton. That is two extremes. One player, I think, the team we can definitely dominate and we can pick apart, and one team that we're going to absolutely be under it from minute one, and we're going to have to find a way around it. So for me, it depends on what opponent we've got, and the end of the day, we're not going to try. We can't beat a Man City in terms of technicality, but we can beat them in terms of graft, hard work, and hard tackles.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you probably, that's a very good point, actually, now that I think about it more, because in the Premier League, we are going to have to swap it up a lot more than we were in the league below. So we kind of got comfortable, especially particularly of Enzo only having really one style. But we're still, nonetheless, I am still curious what you want to see. Against particularly the games we've got coming up, which are a lot of them are winnable games and on paper anyway, even though football's not played on paper. But mate, what I want to start with is left wing in terms of options and what we've seen. As a starter, Steffi Mavididi, Jordan Ayew, and Bobby Dicova-Reid. Who would you like to see start for the majority of the games in that position, particularly one of the most sub positions that we've seen, and why?
So for me, it depends on because against Aston Villa, I think that Ayew was one of our better players. I think until he went off, I think he was probably arguably our best player, and there was a few players that had a good game. Um, for me, it depends on the opposition. So coming into, you talk about the next game against Crystal Palace, or are you
Yes,
talking
I'm just
about
about
this
to share
season?
it. Yeah.
Um, Palace, it's a bold move to put him in, but to put him in, especially since he came from there. I think you put in a Jordan Ayew to start, and then after the game, and then about 60 minutes, you switch it up, just like we did with Oxaki, bring him off, bring on Mavididi as a super sub who can run the defense, then that left back or right back ragged. And that's exactly what they did against Aston Villa. Yes, it was 68 minutes, but we were playing good football until in the second half. So bring him on and then have the opportunity just to batter that fullback until eventually we get a goal. So it's not that I think that Ayew is a better player. I think that he provides a lot and he can defend a lot. And then he runs himself into the ground. Then you bring on fresh legs and then you batter him. So arguably, I'd probably say I'd start with Crystal Palace. I'd start with Jordan Ayew, to
I
be honest.
Interesting, mate. I can fully see what you're saying, but I'd almost feel like I would do it the reverse, especially if we're winning. And the reason why I choose the reverse is Steffi Mavididi, I feel like is a lot more creative. He's got a lot more flair. I would bank a lot of the like XGs and stuff like that and have all been evolved, particularly when he's come on the ball on the game in the pitch towards the end of the game. He also tracks back and is very good defensively as well. So and you could understand for everything that you just said, I just feel like with that experience, a bit less pace, but does hold the ball well, draws a lot of fouls. I think he'd be very good, particularly if we're in front to see a game out and finish. But I can totally see where you're coming from. But that leaves the last option. I hate to say it, but Bobby Dicova-Reid has offered nothing for me. I know it's only been 3 games, but I see him as that cup guy, cup game kind of guy in my opinion. What do you reckon?
I think the jury's still out. I've not been impressed too much. He's been one of our weaker players, in my opinion, if not the weakest player. But what's good is that Steve Cooper goes, you know what? I'm going to rotate. You know, under Enzo or other managers before, they have their favourites and they stick with them. Other managers would have stuck with Reed because, oh, I like him and oh, he's a good player and he's got Premier League experience. The fact that he dropped him and rotated is a good sign. So I've not been too impressed with him, but I still think he can come on and do a job, but just not starting. Just from what we've seen so far, I think he will pop up and get maybe 5 goals a season for us, but it's going to be off the bench and as part of a squad rather than as a starter.
Yep. Solid, mate. Well, moving on, left back. This is the one I'm most curious, actually. Do you want to persist with Victor Christensen? We haven't seen this really as a starting finish position, but still, for me, Victor Christensen, remove that, as we talked about last time, that cross into the box, which, other than that, what does he offer for you defensively? In my opinion, I've seen him beaten the last few matchups, particularly against Traore, which is obviously no easy match, but I think that we have one fullback that is pushing up the pitch and putting that ball in. And in my opinion, Ricardo Pereira is a much better option and quality on the ball. So if we're going to have one fullback pushing up in that position, it's putting balls in the box, it's making those overlapping runs. As a back four, because we don't have a back three anymore, that man should be Ricardo Pereira. Therefore, I honestly still believe JJ is such a better option on that left side. I do think JJ plays better on the right, but I think it is to our detriment putting Victor on that left-hand side. That's just my personal opinion. And you also see him get caught tracking back often out of position when he makes those overlapping runs, kind of similar to FaZe. So I would personally go for JJ over Victor. And then the third option we have is Thomas, who again is probably our cup option.
Yeah, I'm with you.
What
I
are your
think
thoughts?
Luke Thomas is the player that's least likely to play. And I think I'm struggling to see. Well, I understand why they didn't put him out on loan because we don't really have too much backup apart from him. So if we extend his contract for a year, he's probably going to play this year, keeps in the Premier League, and then afterwards we'll take him down. We'll give him away for free. It's a tough one because I think Christians has not been too bad. I think there's been areas that he needs to improve on and work on, but there's a reason why he's in the team. I was impressed with him and his physicality. And I think that's the reason why he's in the team over like a JJ or a Ricardo on that left-hand side. If you look at the players that play in the team, it's not always about are they the biggest or the most technical? Are they most physical? And I think and we're really building a physical team at the moment. And that's the reason why Ricardo Pereira, even though I think it's criminal, won't get featured as much. I'm hoping that changes. Hopefully he'll come in as a right back or come onto a second or maybe in the midfield. I think he could do a job. If we're playing a 3. But I'm really happy. I think with that left position, I'd agree with you, JJ, because you put Ricardo in, but Christensen I don't think he's as bad as option. I think against tougher oppositions, he will get found out, but I'm not too worried about that because I think he held his own against Aston Villa. And he wasn't substituted, but I think he took sin nicely. He played the ball, but if you've got somebody like Fatawu that cooks on the inside, you've got then Christensen to go on the overlap. And I think at times we need that. At the left back position, he's not, if people didn't get forward, people be complaining, oh, why is he getting forward? So you've got to pick and choose your time. I think he will be a good player, but potentially, I think I could see him probably next season, probably going out on loan, or going out as a free because he doesn't offer almost. He's about 6 out of 10, which is great, but is it good enough for the Premier League for the long term? And I think he's still got a couple of big mistakes in him, but I'd still put JJ in just because of his Premier League experience.
I'm with you, mate. Solid. We're in agreement. Kyle, how are you, mate? Thank you for tuning in. Get your comments in. Who you think should be in that position? Moving on, you talking of Ricky P and in the midfield, double pivot. Consuming is basically what we've been playing with. We have Winks, Skip, Ricardo Pereira, and Ndidi. And you could even I wouldn't add him personally, but I know you're his agent, but you could add Chowdhury onto that list as well. So as a combination of those two for a starter, my answer, as we've just seen, I still think we should persist with Winks and Skip. Although, if Ricardo Pereira, we all know that he played in a double pivot last season, would you have him as one of your two in double pivot alongside Winks or Skip? Who is your choice?
It just depends who we come up against. I think if we come, so the next games who we got, Crystal Palace, you could get away with playing Ricardo in the midfield. Everton, I would do that as well. Then after Arsenal, I wouldn't. So in terms of the Crystal Palace game, I'd try it and see what works. But at the same time, we need points on the board at the moment. So it's not like, we'll have a mess around with that. I'd love to see him try putting Ricardo alongside Harry Winks and then playing. Well, we'll get into the cam in a second, but I'd like to see that. But what's nice is that if he puts in Skip and then drops in Diddy and puts in Harry Winks as a double pivot, I think that's quite good as well. So we haven't just got, it's a golden problem to have because you've got strength and depth in numbers. You know, before when we played under Rodgers, where it was Maddison or nothing, it was Barnes or nothing, it was Jamie Vardy or nothing. Now we've got that strength and depth in the squad to really come in. So even if he decides to go with Skip and Winks, I'll get behind it. If he goes with Ricardo, I'll get behind it. So for me, if he goes for that double pivot of the two Tottenham boys, I'm okay with that. But Wilfred and Diddy as the 10, I think is only applicable when you're playing against, like, for example, an Arsenal. They're trying to play through you. You've just got to knock into them and try and steal the ball off them. And I think that's where that works. And again, I'm with you. I think Chowdhury this season, I don't think he's good enough for the Premier League, to be honest. So his role could be, the only thing I can see with him is coming on at 80 minutes, just running himself into the ground, putting in tackles, pushing people off the ball. Because again, they've got really technical players against Arsenal. He would just come in and just clean up. I think he would be good at that. But in possession, I don't fancy him. I think Chowdhury is more of a counter-attacking player.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Spot on. You could argue for everything that you just said that I think that that's actually probably the most depth that we have in those positions right there, because I'd be happy if any of those combinations right there, obviously depending on the opponent. G'day, Sean. Thank you for joining. I wonder why we didn't try to loan out Hamza. I don't know. I just feel like we got skipped quite late and we still needed Hamza for cover. But I do see what you're saying. In my opinion, it's the likes of Will Alves and stuff like that, or Golding. I really wanted to see her get a loan move. I really think it's a shame because they're not even featuring on the bench. So, in my opinion, that's a bit of a shame. What have we got here? Here we go.
I'll bring this up because this is the first team because you see them visually as a shout. Again, I can't get all of them in, but literally, I think all of these, Samaru have not mentioned as well, but I think he's pretty. I don't think we really rate him as well.
No, we don't. That's why I haven't put him in. I didn't even think about it until right now. Thank you for pulling me up on that. So we got the people here in front of us. Thank you for pulling that up. So that leads us into the 10 position. This is where things get interesting for me. We've got Bilal, Boyanote, and Didi, possibly for depending on the opposition. We've got Bobby Cordivari can also play as a 10. Who is your choice, and who would you as well? That's another. Even Steffi could play there if he really wanted to. So we've got options, but as a through and through starting 10, in my opinion, it really comes down to Bilal or Boyanote, and indeed if we're playing the likes of Man City, we're not expecting much of the ball. As my first choice, we haven't seen enough of Bilal, but he gave me proper, was saying the other day, Yuri Tillman vibes, dictating the play from a bit deeper out. But then Boyanote, the way he can just take that ball, keep it, retain it, drive forward. He looks hungry. We all talked about him trying kind of too hard last time we all spoke. What I like about that is that he's hungry. He's obviously not getting the amount of football he wants at his young age at Brighton. So he's got a point to prove here, and he's going to make the most of it. And he's kind of got a nothing to lose situation because it's not his club. You could argue maybe. So blank slate. I really like Boyanote. He'd probably be my starter. It's a shame that we can only really have 110 alongside of our wingers and a striker because we got so used to playing basically a 3-4-2-1 or 3-2-4-1 under Enzo that we had the two high pressing 8s and the wingers and the striker dropping deep. So easy to get superiorities and overloads. But for me, Bilal is a through and through 10. Would you play Bilal, Boyanote? Who would you want to go through?
So if we're sticking with the 4-2-3-1, it's such a strange one because there's pros and cons. I think Bilal, if you look at his highlight reel, which we've all done, we've all gone on YouTube and seen it. One thing you'll notice, even though he's good in technical areas, he has a lot of time on the ball to pick the pass that he wants, look up, tug around, right, get a little bit of a trick, then pick the pass that he wants to play. I think he's going to take time adapting to the Premier League. So for that reason, I go for Buonanotte for now. The problem is with Buonanotte for the long term, he's not going to be here. No point in training up a player. We're being ironic, but at the same time, if we're going to go forward and we're going to want to attack, I think Buonanotte's got 1 goal, 1 assist so far. He's shown he's good at it. He shows he's going to arrive late in the box. I'd start with him. And as the season goes on, I'd start to filter in Bilal more because he's going to be the long-term project. A couple other players not mentioned. Casey McAteer that's mentioned. So Casey McAteer is probably another position that he's going to be a squad player. And I think he came on for the last few minutes just to try something. I think he could do a job, but he will be more of the direct runner to potentially play alongside Jamie Vardy to make the runs in behind it. So Jamie Vardy's not making the runs like he used to make. But for the last 20 minutes or so, what we saw really nicely, I think we saw it last season, that Vardy would just be the person that plays on the assist. So he's got the legs for Casey. That's an option. Michael Golding, I'm not sure why he's in the first team. I agree. I think why we didn't send him on loan makes no sense, especially when we sent so many other people out on loan. Unless, again, he's in here as part of the first team to eventually be incorporated. But then you've got Bilal, you've got bear in mind, Alves isn't in this loop as well, but Michael Golding is. Anyway, and Alves didn't get a loan as well. For me, when we start, you said that, we'll play with one player as a cam. If you notice, what we did is we took against Aston Villa, we took 2 of our wingers off and we put these 2 in as to kind of play alongside. So Bilal dropped a little bit deeper. Buonanotte dropped in as the number 10. So it's not the option we have to stick that formation and things are more fluid. So you could, I think in the future with the likes of, you've signed a player in the likes of Golding. I don't think Golding plays that much deeper, especially with the strength and depth. And if that's the case, we wouldn't have bought in Oliver Skip, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I think that we could play both. Bilal could play slightly deeper in the Tillemans role, and Buonanotte could play as the Madison. If you remember the 4-1-4-1 we used to play under, what was it called? Under Brendan Rodgers when we got Tillemans on loan. What I don't want, Buonanotte's going to be a great player, but I just don't want him to give him loads of game time. And we ship him off back to Brighton, and he takes himself to another level. But that's naturally what a loan with a non-obligation to buy is going to be.
And that means he's done a job here as well. Like, it's going to be painful, but like, that's the thing. Exactly. You're spot on with Bilal. We could slowly integrate him into the team. Maybe he even could be the finisher if we are going to have one, center attacking midfielder. And that's obviously going to be Buonanotte, making the most out of him while we have him here on loan. He looks promising. But then Bilal, he could get put in other positions. But as the biggest threat, I think he is our man so far from what we've seen, which is obviously very limited. Next thing that we actually start talking about off air for the right wing, which actually is very interesting. Buonanotte, I'm pretty sure, came on as that right-centered midfielder or right winger for Fatawu. No, it was Bilal, I think, that came on. Either way, Fatawu did come off. You could argue that we could have Bilal as our center attacking midfielder, and we could have Buonanotte on the right wing, and Fatawu could be a finisher. That could be very controversial. I'm not saying Fatawu has been bad, but that is a way to get a lot more depth. And if we are to have 2 attacking 10s, which we haven't seen so much, but if we were, you kind of have to favor one winger, and who takes that position? Do you know what I mean? But as a right wing, Casey McAteer, very, very strong option as a squad option, like for what we've got. But we've got Fatawu in the right wing, Casey McAteer, Buonanotte.
Yeah.
You could even use the Ayew or Reed, but I think they look better on the left. Who are your options for you? Obviously, Fatawu is probably going to be the strongest candidate. We're seeing him a lot. We all love Fatawu, but he's kind of got that position like too safe now, similar to Steffi Mavididi last season. Who would you be your starting right winger?
It would be Fatawu. I think he's started to really make that position his own on the right-hand side, which I really enjoy. But he's still, I think he will be another beast. But he's still trying to figure it out. I think Fatawu is still trying to knock it past a player, running to a good position. But in general, I think it has to be Fatawu on that right. I mean, John Nye could play a position. Reed could play a position on the right. But clear, it's Fatawu. If we're struggling in the game because he's slowly learning about Premier League football, you can substitute him. As again, I didn't think Steve Cooper would be brave enough to substitute him because Fatau could be a game winner. But he did. He brought him off. He brought Ayew off. And then he decided, right, I'm going to put 2 number 10s in and we're going to really go for the game. And I really like that. The fact that he's going, do you know what? We're 2-0 down. Some managers be like, oh, there's nothing we can do now. Let's just try and shit up and put 5 at the back and absorb all the pressure. No, he's having a go. He's trying to get back in the game. And it nearly worked for us. So I'm quite happy with that because I think that, Fatau was probably that good position. But it shows you, well, he's not afraid to mix it up. And he's not afraid to try and things that potentially might not work.
I like that as well, mate. I do kind of want like a little bit of identity, but it's nice to know that he is flexible and he can change and adapt to things and he's open to ideas. For me, Fatau, great option. We all love Fatau. He's a starter. If that is to be replaced, depending on who's already on the pitch, but you could argue McAteer is a decent shout. I prefer McAteer on the right. So does Sean. I think he's quite physically for his size too. He's strong on the ball. Just wish he had a little bit more confidence in taking his man on. But like when we're in a lot more possession, he's a lot more confident. We've even seen him when he's been subbed on the last few minutes as like a wing back option as well defensively. So that's not a bad shout either. Another decent comment here from Sean. Unless we're doing a box midfield, we can't play 2 10s. I agree. I'd go Boynotti to start. I would as well, mate. I think everyone's really, really starting to get proper attached to him already. Not making the best use of Boynotti, though. He's better in central areas. I agree. Anil, the next one. Is it Edson Oduard? I'm sure I've just mixed that up and massacred that name.
No.
Who was yours? Who we got? Jamie Vardy, Jordan Ayew, Edouard, and Steffi, even because the striker as well. And then we've got Daka to come back. But for me, starting, I would actually go on.
No.
No, you go.
You're just about to finish, mate. I just interrupted you.
No, you're right. I'm just. We haven't seen Edouard, but like, with a loan again, probably going to make the most of him unless he's just squad option. But like, we might see him start against Crystal Palace depending on how these next couple of weeks go during international break. So this is going to be really interesting. Further time for all these players to get integrated under Cooper and try out different systems and training. But for me, I would go Ayew up top, starting, and I would have Vardy as your finisher. So I would have Vardy come on around the 60-minute mark, and he's going to be that impact sub. Jordan Ayew good at holding the ball up. I think he can also help maybe get the wingers integrated into the game as well. But for me, Ayew would be the starter and Vardy would be the finisher, or vice versa, depending if we have a couple of games that week. Until we see this lad from, I forgot his. I swear I get his first and last name mixed up all the time. Edson Oduard or whatever it is.
He's there, mate. I'll put it there.
There we go. Odson Edouard. Thank you. I get him mixed up.
Yeah. So I don't know if you noticed, because we were linked to him for such a long time that we thought the deal was going to be done.
Yeah, I remember.
Did you know much about him coming in from Celtic before he went to Crystal Palace?
I've seen a decent amount of him at Celtic. I thought I had kind of one eye on him, and I thought that can he integrate into, like, can he make that crossover from Scottish to English, top flight? It's a massive jump. Okay at Crystal Palace. I think he's going to be a squad option, to be honest with you. Like, I still would have rather hang on to Cannon, but I'm just glad at least he got a loan move. But what are your thoughts from what you've seen, which is highlights, obviously?
What it is that Cannon isn't ready for the Premier League yet, or at least Steve Cooper doesn't think he is, which is, again, fair enough. So we put him out on loan. We're going to give him the game time at Stoke, which is fine. And then we're bringing in Edouard as a squad player. Now he's got Scottish Premier League experience where he tore it up. Then the Premier League, he didn't quite click. And also he was playing with managers that didn't really know how to play him. I remember you remember we played the 0-0 against it was one of the worst games I've ever seen. 2 years ago when we went on it was the first point we got that season against Crystal Palace. And they had a front three of Eze, Edouard, and Zaha. And all three, and it was against Patrick Vieira's team. And all three came, both teams just stunk the place out of just nothing. And that wasn't partly his fault. It was just both teams were rubbish. I think now he's got an idea. Part of the reason is he's got an idea for the Premier League. So that's why he's got Premier League experience. B, he's quite physical, as we mentioned before. C, I think what he'll do if we play him, we might not be able to play. There's a couple of ideas. You play him in the middle, and you play Fatau one side, and you play Mavididi the other, because you can drop in as a false nine and release them too. The problem is then, what do you do with the midfield? Because then you might just have, for example, because he's more of a false nine. But I'm interested to see what he does in the team. But overall, I think for me, Jamie Vardy, he'll play the role that he did last year, where he'll play half an hour. I think 1 minute he'll play 60 minutes. He'll be dropped for the next game, play 30 minutes. Then he'll play 60 minutes, 30. He won't play a full 90 to really get the most out of him. So I think, yeah, Jamie Vardy's going to be able to play the game. And I think I'd still start him against Crystal Palace, because some of the other players will be away on international duty. I still think we'd start Jamie Vardy against Crystal Palace, because he loves a goal there. And then if it doesn't work, then we've got Edouard, we've got Ayew. Again, we've got other choices. But the idea, I think, of playing Edouard and Ayew against Crystal Palace, for me, if he does both of those, it's more of Steve Cooper's, I'm going to play my best team. I don't care who we're coming up against. I've got to play my best team. So it depends on what tactics you want to use, but I'd still start with Jamie Vardy, just because I still think he will get you some out of a game, even if it's like going 8 touches of the ball in the whole game.
I would actually tend to I can totally agree with that, to be honest with you, like in certain games as well. And I agree. I think those two are going to Ayew and Vardy will alternate the most. One starts, one finishes, 1 week, etc. The biggest question I actually have for you, after everything to round this all up, after everything we've discussed, I hate to say this, but going back to the kind of starting and building it from the back of the double pivot, Winks, Skip, and let's say Ndidi as the options, like omitting Ricky P. Ndidi, in my opinion, can't protect the ball as well and set up a decent pass like Skip or Winks can. Yes. Now, if he's playing as that attacking midfielder in the Premier League, or even a high pressing 8, which we're not using anymore, it breaks down too much. Other than that dink move that we see of him and Fatawi, he doesn't really offer anything much of a goal threat, in my opinion, or it breaks the play down, particularly of pace. In my opinion, I hate to say this, but for me, he'd be omitted from the starting 11 next game. I think it would be better to play without him and bring him on as a finisher or a sub. And that might be controversial, particularly with him being our highest paid player. But Winks and Skip aren't far behind him. And I just think that we kind of threw whatever money we could to keep and retain him, so that because of his sell-on clauses, etc., he can be sold the next transfer window, and it's not another player on high wages going on a free. So what are your thoughts on that, Ndidi, in this side?
Ndidi, I'm with you. The reason why we only play Ndidi when we're against a side that's going to go for the European football. So Champions League football specifically. And that is Aston Villa in that conversation. Emery's a brilliant manager. So when we play him, when I say a cam, I put it in quotation marks, because let's be honest, he's not a cam. He just sits in, does what he needs to do, and then afterwards we rotate. Now we've got the players to rotate. The reason why people are so annoyed against Fulham is, again, Buonanotte needed to come on. He didn't. And then we put on Wilfred. Then Wilfred Ndidi playing a cam, which didn't work. I think they recognise that is why they went and signed Bilal. So we've got options there to play in that position. When people say he's a cam, I go, no, it's a 3 at the back. It's a 3 in midfield, not a 2-1 that we're talking about. I know Anil likes to put him up front, but again, if we look, even if we go the average pitch position in the last game, let me see if we can find that one. Oh no, he's actually playing quite high up. Oh dear. Let me see if I can find that one, just with that sofa score that I shared with you. Let me put this up. He actually was playing quite high up, to be honest with you, average position wise. Wilfred Ndidi, I keep looking for number 25, but he's number 6 now. But he was in the game. He was somehow ahead of Fatau. But again, Fatau was trying to double back with James Justin. So technically he was a number 10, but I still don't see him as a number 10.
I agree with you. And like in possession, in transition, I've noticed quite a few times. I've noticed like Ndidi will almost even be in front of Vardy sometimes, or he'll be the one that makes the run forward with him, which I don't know, but like for me, it's not working. And I'm not saying he's been terrible, but I just think that it's detrimental to how, keeping the ball and offering a threat up forward. And in my opinion, it's not working. So it's kind of like he's almost turned into this, like he was originally like a really, holding six, really good at winning the ball back in front of the centre backs under Rodgers. Got injured, kind of not been the same. We've had diabolical problems in the past where he's even been played as a centre back when we've been run out of centre backs. We've now seen up front. Now he's kind of becoming this utility player, but we all know his real position. I think he'd be. Sorry, mate.
Sorry, mate. Just with that, if I should put the substitutions on, if I can just get this out, I just don't want to see the advert. If I put the substitutions on, you can see that now you can see again how now we've got a single pivot, and we went for the game after that. We took Ndidi off, we took Skip off, and we put these players on. Again, Deco Reed wasn't really in the game. McAteer wasn't really in the game because he only came up for like a few minutes towards the end. But if you look at the position of the two wingers in that sense, Mavididi was the out-and-out winger. Bilal was played as the number 10, and Buonanotte was played on that side to then cut in, which I thought was interesting because, again, it shows you that we're going for it. But the way that we go for it is without Wilfred Ndidi in the team.
That's precisely why I think that we should be, in my opinion, dropping him. But look, that's just me. I'm just an Australian with an opinion. Don't take me too seriously. Look, mate, I'm going to get into these comments and we'll wrap it up. Got a couple here. Sean, we were supposed to get him instead of Daka. I think he's talking about Edouard, one of the two. Yeah. Edouard, instead of Daka, but I still think we should bring in a permanent striker in January. I agree, mate. I think that's going to be the biggest asterisk of players and positions to watch that may need strengthening in the meantime, but anything can happen in that time. Indeed, he's a center attacking midfielder, only works in a box midfield. If we're not playing a box midfield, then we can't play him that far up. I see where you're coming from. Him by himself does not work. That's another thing you could even argue for him, even in that double pivot, which we did see him play, and I believe it was Tottenham was the only time we saw him play alongside Wicks. It kind of looked like. So he needs support no matter where he is, in my opinion. But look, Neil, it's been really good having you on, mate. It's been good just to talk about some football while we've got nothing on. We've got Crystal Palace coming up, as we just discussed. So that's going to be – they're a decent side, and I think they're not as there for the taking as people make them out to be, but still we are in front of them on the table. Walsall, that's where you could see Edouard getting his start. And then we've got Everton. That is a game, a must. That's like a 6-pointer right there, in my opinion. And then we've got Arsenal, and that's just a free hit. We all probably bricking it for that game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm with you. And that's I think, are they in League One or League Two? I'm trying to think. Birmingham, so they're League One. No. League, I don't even know. Bradford City. So I think they're in League Two at the moment, from what I'm seeing. So again, that's more of a training game for that one in Walsall.
League Two.
So again, that's more of a training game, similar to what we did against Tranmere. So yeah, roll on that one, because again, we'll be able to see a few more players in that. Overall, now the window is closed. Well, I'll throw a question back to you. Now the window is finished. What do you make of the squad now that it's going to be fixed for the next few months at a minimum?
I still don't. I feel like we've gone for experience heavy. Like, I know we've got a Coley, much better game, but much more of a raw talent. If you think of you got to think about the people that we've lost. Like Kelechi, in my opinion, is better than all the striker options that we've just brought in as an out-and-out striker. I know he was. I know he's very hot and cold.
But people say that about Ndidi. People are saying about re-signing Ndidi as well. Would we get a better option?
Yeah, I think Skip's been okay. Skip's probably my favorite signing that we've made. Or Buonanotte's not really a signing, so we're talking permanent from what we've seen so far. Skip, I think, brings the most to the side. But in terms of if you think further up the pitch, we've lost. I like Yunus, but I don't think he would have been physical enough for the Premier League. But Yunus and Pratt, and then you've got Deco Reed and Ayew. So we've got experience. I think Deco Reed is a very average buy, to be honest with you. I think it's a waste of money a little bit, but I get it for squad depth, and don't crucify me for saying that. But all in all, if I had to rate it out of 10, the transfer window, I'd probably give it a 6.
Fair enough. I think I'd go higher. I'd go for 7.5, genuinely, for what we've got and the money was spent. We have spent too much, in my opinion, on Skip was too much money. But look, he's here now. We've got to get behind him. And I'm with you. My favourite is definitely Bilal. Definitely. I think from what he sums up, what gets me excited about football. Young, talented, technical, on the ball, can play multiple positions, and he's just going to light up once he gets going. But give him time, because I think he will be a good player, but we've got to give him time to get to that level.
Yeah, big time. And he looks like the most exciting thing for me with him is his set pieces. He looks like we've been screaming for someone to take set pieces since Madison left, in my opinion. I think it was the 1 week area in particular that we had last season, but we'll have to wait and see. Let's see the lad cook. Let's hope he comes good. He gets me excited as well. And let's hope that he is next alongside with Mads Hermansen and Fatawu and Bilal are the 3 options I possibly expect to sell for big money in a season or 2, unfortunately, make a profit and reinvest it in the future. I'm Luke from Leicester City Down Under. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Go and subscribe to Neil at Beyond the 90. He's an absolute legend for popping in today. Thank you for coming in, mate. Appreciate it. Good talking to you. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care.